Hey guys, what is up? Eben here. So you've all spoken. Everyone wants a macro video. So this is the next video that I will start working on. People also want tips and tricks for leveling and prebis list for druids. So these are all things that are in the works, so don't worry. Also, I've been trying to respond to every comment, but we're starting to get a lot of new subscribers and viewers. So if I don't get to all of them, just know that I have read them all. Thanks so much for all the support, guys. It's really satisfying to see you all enjoying the videos I've been putting out. So today we're going to talk quickly about the pros and cons of rolling a druid on either Horde or Alliance side. So we already talked about whether druid is the right class for you, and if you've decided that druid is the right class, then you also have to think about whether you want to roll on Horde or Alliance side. So first and foremost, if you have a group of friends or a guild that already knows what faction they're going to roll, then obviously play with them. The social and community aspect is key in World of Warcraft Classic, much more so than min-maxing your character. Okay, let's talk about Night Elves. So if you've chosen Alliance, I'm sorry that's your first mistake. No, I'm only kidding, but if you've chosen to roll Alliance, then your only option is Night Elf. So let's talk racials. You have Nature Resistance, Wisp Spirit, and Quickness as passive racials. Your active racial is Shadow Meld. Now, Nature Resistance is fairly useless in Classic WoW. Maybe you might resist some spells from Shamans or another Druid, but it's pretty negligible. Wisp Spirit does come in handy, but hopefully you're not dying too often. But at the end of the day, in terms of a passive racial, it is rather nice to have. This leads us to Quickness. This is the best passive racial that Night Elves have. It's very nice for tanking in bear form and DPSing in cat form, and also comes in handy while leveling up. 1% isn't crazy, but it does add some nice mitigation. That's just, again, passive on the side and helps since druids can't parry, so you rely heavily on dodging, high armor, and having high health. Now, let's talk about the active racial, Shadow Meld. Shadow Meld in Classic is only usable while out of combat, which can seem pretty useless, but actually Shadow Meld is very helpful in World PvP as you can drop combat and you can drink. As Druid relies heavily on their mana pool to enable them to shapeshift, CC, and to be able to heal, drinking is very important. While oftentimes enemies will know your general location, while they're trying to run and find your body hidden, you're able to get off several ticks of mana, which is really, really strong. So Shadow Meld is definitely situational, but once a player is used to having it in their kit, they understand just how impactful it can be. Okay, let's take a look at Tauren and their racials. So passive racials for Tauren are Cultivation, Nature Resistance, and Endurance. And your active racial is War Stomp. So again, Nature Resistance is even more useless on Horde side because you won't be facing any Shamans in World PvP or Battlegrounds, but it might come in handy, I guess, when you get to AQ 40. Cultivation is pretty handy since herbalism is a great profession as a druid since you can pick herbs in travel form, but it's not going to really be super impactful at level 60, besides maybe not having to have herbalism enchant on a pair of gloves. So now let's talk Endurance. Endurance is 5% increase to your total health, and this helps you out in all forms and any role you choose to fill. This leads us to War Stomp. This racial is so useful. It's long enough that you're able to get off a full entangling roots or regrowth on yourself. It does DR with bash, so you need to manage this. The great thing about War Stomp is it's useful in PvP and PvE. So as a druid, you lack interrupts and stuns, which can be super annoying during leveling or doing dungeon runs, as many mobs will cast or heal themselves, so having an extra interrupt definitely comes in handy. Okay, so we went over the different racials, and I'm just going to come out and say it. If you want to PvE and raid as a feral druid, and you want to DPS or tank, it's best to be Night Elf. If you want to heal, either race will do, Horde or Alliance. if you want to focus on PvP, I personally believe Tauren is the best. Now, we're going to get into why I believe that is. So, Night Elves receive that 1% dodge, which really only comes in handy if you're sitting in melee range often, so bear form or cat form. 5% HP overall is good, but that 1% dodge is going to come into more use than the extra HP from bear form, as hopefully in a group setting you're not dropping sub 15 to 20% health very often. If you want a PvE as a feral, you also need to pick up crowd pummelers from Nomergon, and this is much easier on Alliance side since you spend most of your free time anyways sitting around in Ironforge, so it's really close. Also, War Stomp for Taurens is good, but it's not able to be used in bear form or cat form, so this means that if you're raiding as a tank or DPS feral, it's not going to come into your rotation anyways. Also, feral benefits Alliance raid compositions more so than Horde, as you don't have to compete with Wind Fury from Shamans, and you're also able to get Paladin buffs for yourself. So if you can stand playing Alliance, no, I'm just kidding. If you can stand playing Alliance and you want to focus on DPSing or tanking, I personally think Night Elf is the way to go. So, if you don't want to tank and you don't want to DPS as a feral, then you're pretty much left with being a healer. Now, as a healer, neither faction stands out. You do have a slightly larger mana pool as a Night Elf, but in the end, it's not going to matter. So, yeah, raiding as a Resto Druid, you can be Horde or Alliance, and there will be a place for you. So, what we haven't covered is PvP. If your focus is PvP, I believe Tauren is the best. War Stomp alone makes Horde Druid extremely strong. And also, here's another big one. No Shamans to deal with. Enemy Shamans can be extremely annoying as a Druid because you're having to deal with Purge and the burst that Shamans are capable of. I would rather have a 10-minute fight versus a Paladin than face a Shaman any day. But that, again, is just my preference. Also, Tauren have the 5% total HP increase from their passive racial, which benefits you regardless of your spec, regardless of your gear, and it doesn't matter what form you're in. So where Alliance gets the 1% dodge, it really only helps them out in melee range, which in PvP, most of the time you're going to be kiting and you're trying to stay away from the enemy. So I believe that the 5% total HP is just a better option here. Now, once all this is said and done, you have to remember that while there are differences between Night Elves and Taurens and Horde versus Alliance, it really comes down to what race and faction you personally enjoy and what resonates with you. I know I kind of poke fun at Alliance, but it's really just to have that faction rivalry and faction pride there. But really, either choice is a great one, and I definitely understand why a lot of people like and prefer the looks of Night Elf Druids versus Tauren Druids, and why some people enjoy playing Horde side versus Alliance side. So at the end of the day, play with your friends, play with your guild, and pick something that resonates with you and kind of what fits your personal play style the most. I hope this kind of answers some of those questions I've been getting in regards to, what's better, Alliance Druid or Horde Druid, or compositions of raids and things like that. So just to summarize things, guys, if you're going to play Feral Druid and you want to take PvE very seriously, I think Alliance side is just much better suited for that in terms of their raid compositions, farming manual crowd pummelers, and overall your racials. And then again, I think that Horde side just favors PvP in general in terms of your matchups. One thing I didn't mention is that oftentimes there are more Warlocks playing on Horde side, just because Alliance Warlocks have to deal with Will of the Forsaken, and Warlock is one of your hardest matchups, so playing on the Horde side, you're just going to have to face less Warlocks in general, which I find to be very nice. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like I've said, pros and cons of both. Just play what you guys like. Hope this video was informative, and I will catch you guys in the next one.